about you.
Crabtree, don't you open your mouth about the best.
So Skip Bayless got his new partner, former Legion of Boom cornerback, future Hall of Famer, and Richard Sherman. And I've heard different rumblings. I've heard Charles Barkley's, I've heard LaShawn McCoy's, but he finally got his guy. And I think that what it takes to debate a guy like Skip Bayless have to have a strong personality. And who's better to have a strong personality than Richard Sherman? Now, there's a lot of things I want to talk about with this move and kind of how we got here. We know how we got here a little bit, but talking about how we got here, I think that the biggest thing is having a guy like Skip Bayless came up through the journalism ranks, covered a lot of different teams, Cold Pizza, First Take, now on Undisputed with FS1, and then you got Richard Sherman. He's been there, done that, but also a guy who has a pretty solid background. I mean, he went to Stanford. That's a great school. Education, athletics, having those two different things working for him, and then came into the NFL, was not a high draft pick, was not one of the most athletic corners coming into the NFL, but he used his instincts, he used his motor, he used his intensity and his attitude to make him one of the better corners in the NFL, and I think he had a stretch where he was the best in the NFL. I mean, as a zone corner now, you have to think, and I think it's going to come. Now, we always have to ask this question, is Skip Bayless going to say, if he has to defend Baker Mayfield or whoever he's defending the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, will it be the fact that Richard Sherman couldn't cover a soul in man coverage? Is that going to come up? Is that going to be a conversation we have to have? Now, of course, that's not really to the extent of the truth. I do think he was a pretty solid corner in man coverage, but had his bread and butter in zone. Think about Dan Quinn, that Legion of Boom defense with Earl Thomas in the middle, having Cam Chancellor also in that lineup, and just ran a lot of zone, physical, nasty. So now talking about this move, I think that, like I said, you have to have that strong personality to really match a guy like Richard Sherman and really match a guy like Skip Bayless as well, because they're going to get after it and they're going to come after you.
My tape is my resume. That's what I leave it up to. I mean, you can say whatever you want. Skip can say whatever he wants, but Skip, whenever you refer to me, whenever you speak to me, whenever you address me as all-pro Stanford graduate.
Now, with Skip Bayless, and this is the conversation we have to have, how has he transitioned? And I think that when you're an older person and when you have so much success at this level on the debate stage, do you think that what is working, is it going to continue to work? I think that's the question that we have to ask. And does he have to elevate and really recreate himself in a new stage of sports media? Because we see some different things. And I don't know how much, really looking at the new generation of sports media and how guys are triggered and generated now, we look at a lot of people, they want to see analytical sports. They want to see good talks about good football with good energy. How many times do we want to have the same debate about the same thing with the negative energy attached to it? And I just think that's one question that we have to have. And really, there are so many different avenues now to where we see networks are not really the only source of sports you can get, even with myself. So I think about, I'm a guy. Personally, I do not watch sports network shows, but I watched Undisputed because I want to see Club Shay Shay, because I want to see Uncle Shannon. But I watched that show, and then after that, I was done. Never didn't watch TV, didn't even watch Undisputed on TV. I watched it on YouTube on my laptop. So with this combination, I think it's something interesting. You have other shows on FS1 like Speaking, some other things. First Things First with Nick Wright. I do like that show, want to shout that show out. But now Skip Bayless, will he understand to have the emotional intelligence about certain situations? And I think we know where I'm going when I say emotional intelligence, understanding in certain situations, certain things just have to be written off. Certain things that you want to say, certain things that you think you have to say, have to be written off in certain situations and moments. But Richard Sherman, I want to see how he responds to that. And I think that already now having the job, having that title besides Skip Bayless, they've kind of did some trial runs, did some test things, see how these guys work with each other, see what you can do that I like, see what you don't do that I don't like, and different types of things with that partnership and relationship. So now bringing him in, like I said, it was some other names out there that I think I would have liked, but I do think Richard Sherman is a very interesting one. Now, we know TV is not really a new thing for Richard Sherman. Was covering NFL football games and did a pretty solid job at that. I like seeing him before the games, after the games with some different coverage. But I think this is an entirely different format. And really, not only do we get to see Richard Sherman in a debate format with what he has to say about some of the best NFL athletes and NBA athletes and sports across the world, but I think that now he can also build a brand with himself, because what we know about Richard Sherman, one of the best trash talkers in the game.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get. Don't you ever talk about me.
He's trash, and that's what I really remember Richard Sherman for. And another thing that I remember Richard Sherman for, talking with Skip Bayless, said, you know what? I'm better than you in life.
Okay. Do you think you're better than Darrelle Revis is right now?
In my 24 years of life, I'm better at life than you.
And that was one of the real infamous moments when I remember First Take with Stephen A. and Skip Bayless, and Richard Sherman came on that day when he was still on Seattle, and really one of the funniest moments and one of the realest moments that I think I saw with those two. Now, in this new stage and age, we have to think, when I say has he transitioned and has he recreated himself, and will he have the ability to elevate being a guy who's really a part of the older media, kind of one of the founders and origins of sports media, especially in the debate format? Will he understand not to let it get to certain extents with the personal shots?
I never said you were jealous of Baker Mayfield.
Skip, I did what I did. You make it seem like I was a bum. I'm in the effing Hall of Fame.
Okay,
I got three Super Bowls.
So what?
So what?
He's way better than you were.
I'm better than you. Skip, what did I got to see what you do? You take personal shots.
Because you're defending Baker Mayfield, you don't have to take a shot at Richard Sherman. You don't have to say you couldn't guard this guy on your best day. You couldn't guard this guy on your worst day. Or you struggled in man coverage at times. You ran cover 3 because you had to. Those types of things. We don't want to get to that point. And I don't think it has to get to that point, even for the clicks. If you're talking about good topics, and this is another thing, if you're not talking about the Dallas Cowboys all day, it will come. It won't take those unnecessary shots and those personal shots to get guys to tune in and watch. I think now with the new media, and like I said, with this topic, people want to see authentic, real, chill talks about sports. And I think that's what we're going to get into and what we're going to have now, because I don't need to see Richard Sherman yelling at Skip Bayless. I don't need to see Skip Bayless yelling at Richard Sherman. Just talk about the sport. Give me your take, and I'm going to tune into that. With Stephen A. on First Take, just give your take, and I'm going to tune into that. So it's that type of thing that I'm questioning, that I want to see out of Skip Bayless, because you have to think, like I said, when you've had so much success and when you've been at the top, and when you can kind of say, I started all of this, along with Stephen A. and some of the other guys in sports media, you have to think there's a certain feeling in Skip Bayless that he's kind of stuck in his ways. Now, like I said, hopefully for the betterment of the show and for the longevity of the show, it's not like that. But with Shannon Sharpe, I knew that there was really no coming back from how things went with those two, because yes, they kept it very professional, and I want to give my hats off to that, because in the midst of everything, everyone said, you know, we're looking for this, we're looking for if the energy's not the same, if Shannon Sharpe's not bringing it how he brings it every day, if Skip Bayless is walking on eggshells or Shannon Sharpe is walking on eggshells, we're looking for that little thing in the show that's saying it's over, throw it out. And everyone's ready to write Undisputed off, but I think they kept it so professional that you could not really tell unless you did your background research, unless you studied. Like I said, I knew that after the Baker Mayfield incidents, after the Damar Hamlin incidents, it was to a point where that you can't come back from so much, and it's only so much that you can fix, but some things are truly unfixable. And I think that was one of the things that was unfixable when you take it that far with a guy, taking shots at his personal career, taking shots at his accolades and stacking him up against other professional athletes and saying, you're not this guy. You may be this guy, but you're not on that level. And being a Hall of Famer, what does that even truly mean? Well, if I'm a Hall of Famer and he's a Hall of Famer, does it matter who's the better Hall of Famer? And of course, some things are for debate, but that's not to say Tom Brady played at 45 because you couldn't play at 45. I want to know what tight end is playing at 45. Gronk couldn't do it. Travis Kelce's not going to do it. And a lot of people could not do that. And you get what I'm saying with the tight end. So understanding that it doesn't have to be that. And even with Richard Sherman, this is a guy who struggled with some injuries, had some injuries with San Francisco. And really, I think he had a great last stint with that team, especially for his age. But now I have to say I like the move overall. But like I said, I want to see how does Skip Bayless recreate himself. I think that's the next step in creating a great show, keeping this show where it was. Like I said, I'm not going to say I'm writing anything off, and really want to come from the point that understanding how Skip Bayless has really created this genre for sports television and how he's elevated a lot of people, put people in positions, even with Shannon Sharpe, and he's thankful for that. But you have to know and you have to think, if he continues to do some of the things he did with Shannon Sharpe, it's not going to work out. And I want to know what you guys think in the comments. What are your takes on this move? What do you think about Richard Sherman and Skip Bayless? How does that name ring off? You know, they had Undisputed Skip and Shannon. Now you got Undisputed Richard and Skip. I don't know how great that sounds, but that's what you have right there. So one move, a big time move, I would say. Want to see when it comes back. They come back August 20th, I believe. So want to see this move. Want to know what you guys think. Skip Bayless, Richard Sherman.